There was never an education piece around get your eye checked on a regular basis that I can remember, even going through school. I don't know about you guys come from a lot younger generation than me, but when you guys went through school, I don't know if you remember if there was ever anything like that. But when I went through school, there used to be a time when they'd even send dental people in, and we used to do that little swish in our mouth with the colored stuff. I don't know if you guys did it when you were young, but it was just an oral health thing too that they used to do in the schools, but there was never a thing for eyes. So I think that has always been a lack of bringing it to the forefront, and I think people just really take eyesight for granted for whatever reason. When you've had it your whole life, I could never speak to somebody who is blind or has lost eyesight or throughout their life, right? All I know is I woke up one day and my vision was blurry, and I used to have I remember going to do eye tests and having 20/20 vision or whatever that was, the best vision you could have, and they just tell me that you have a sensitivity to light, maybe wear some sunglasses, but I guess I'm a sun seeker, so I didn't take their their advice, and I woke up one day and I swear that it was like I had the bottom of a dirty glass or something over my eyes, or all of a sudden everything was blurry. I couldn't read little lines anymore, and I tried to avoid it for as long as I could, and like you said, I learned how to go on autopilot and just see the things around me, and then I discovered readers, and then I could see again.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to You Create's podcast, Many Different Birds, broadcasting on CJSW Radio, where we will hear authentic stories from special guests from all backgrounds and bridge the gap between non-Indigenous and Indigenous communities, with a special focus on the Canadian healthcare system. We want to open up the floor to honest discussions and get a deeper insight into how we can improve our healthcare practices and work on our own biases. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3.
So now a little bit about Sidney. Sidney Gill is an Indigenous man, and his family is from the Sapatoak Cree Nation located in Treaty 4 territory. He is thoroughly engaged in connecting and reconnecting people with Indigenous ways of life and beliefs. Over the past 18 years, he has helped develop and strengthen cultural resources available for cultural reconnection for individuals, families, and organizations through social serving systems of care and in the human services sector. Sidney's work seeks to create opportunities for all people to experience and connect to Indigenous ways, elders, and communities. Sidney regularly conducts, participates, and facilitates sharing circles, traditional feasts, and ceremony. Also, through development of classroom-style workshops, which cover the TRC report, UNDRIP, and more, Sidney facilitates blanket exercises, and his work has translated to cultivate deeper and more positive relations in helping to bridge gaps in services for Indigenous women, men, youth, and families across multiple domains.
Sidney has worked with the University of Calgary's Faculty of Social Work as an instructor for professional development within the sector for a 4-year stint. He has had the opportunity to give many presentations, a keynote address, and host workshops to diverse audiences across Western Canada on the importance of understanding cultural reconnection within reconciliation for Indigenous peoples.
So now moving on to Darcy. So Darcy Hipkiss is a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta, with her bloodline linking her back to the Waterhen Lake First Nation in Treaty 6. Darcy enjoys using her creativity and interpersonal skills to help engage with those in her community, to foster relationships and encourage conversations. She is a recent graduate from the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology with a diploma in hospitality management and a degree in business administration with a focus in marketing. Darcy graduated with multiple Indigenous career awards and has now recently joined Operation Eyesight as a community engagement coordinator.
Awesome. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. And before we start, is there anything that you would like to add?
For me, just because I'm not from this territory, I always find it important to take a moment to reflect on, I guess, what would be called a land acknowledgement in current realities when it comes from an Indigenous protocol. So I always, again, because I'm a guest, and if you know your treaty territories, I'm here in Treaty 7 territory, and I always want to take a moment for folks to recognize that, and provide a moment for learning for individuals to realize that they need to know that the original peoples here are their hosts, and they've always been here, and they want to continue share with folks. So in Treaty 7 territory, we remember it as a Blackfoot name, a Mokinsis, and there's some other names too that I've yet to learn myself, but I always find it important to do a land acknowledgement as well too, and remember the original peoples that come from this land. And here again, you would look at the Blackfoot Confederacy being Treaty 7 territory, with Siksika, Kainai, Bakani, the Stoney Nakoda nations as well too, and Tsuut'ina, and then of course the Métis Region 3 people, and then all the rest of us that live and play here and call Treaty 7 territory home. So with that, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, Darcy, or if there's anything that they missed with your introduction. But for me, it's always just a reminder of, who was always here, and to remember our place here in that story as well.
No, I think you put it well said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So before we begin, I have a question for you both. Can you please let our listeners know, what is Operation Eyesight?
So Operation Eyesight is a global community. We're actually celebrating our 60th anniversary this year.
Wow.
Of work, and there'll be I think quite a celebration later on this year. So maybe keep an eye out for that as well too. I don't know the details on that, but I know we're planning something big. And I guess a lot of our work right now consists overseas. We have more than 65 staff with 500 volunteers worldwide, along with a team of more than 2,000 community health workers and volunteers. We are hundreds of communities of work. We are a network of 10,000 plus donors, 56 partner hospitals, and more than 30 partner institutions, including universities like the U of C, institutional donors, and clubs such as Rotaries, Lions, and others. So I would say together we're a global community, and the impact we want to do is we're working to make avoidable vision loss a thing of the past. Our mission, if you want to get right into that, if you wanted to think about what our mission is and all that, and if you looked right on the website, you would see our mission is to prevent blindness and restore sight. Our vision is the elimination of avoidable vision loss, and the values we hold are equity, innovation, citizenship, compassion, and excellence. Is there anything you want to maybe add to that, Darcy?
We often will invest more in sustainable eye health treatment, and blindness prevention, and then community development. So our work leads more to reduced inequalities, better overall health and the well-being, and then increase social and economic opportunities for the communities that we're working alongside in.
So I had a question. What does it kind of mean when you say sustainable eye health treatment? How does that kind of look like?
I think overall, if you look at our organization, I guess we should mention too that we're from the Canada program now. So this is a very, very new, as well as of the work that Operation Eyesight wants to start now helping Indigenous communities across Canada here. Basically why we're on here today. But the work with Operation Eyesight, like I said, being 60 years old, I can tell you that, in sustainability in 2009, we piloted our flagship hospital based community eye health program model. And this has been proven to successfully eliminate avoidable blindness on a sustainable basis, meaning that we work with all those partners that we spoke about in the beginning, all those many people I listed. In the countries that we operate in, we get right into the communities, and like you said, community-led volunteers, or we employ community-led leaders, I guess is the way to put it, to craft what that solution looks like, basically for that community on the ground level, I guess, in the way of actually just getting access to regular eye care, eye exams, and then if there's anything beyond that, to make sure that client journey, I guess, would be followed in anywhere that we operate in. So with that hospital-based community eye health program model, right, this has scaled up in South Africa, South Asian and African countries that Operation Eyesight works in, and then during 2010 they transitioned into a knowledge center with the successful piloting and scaling up of that model I was talking about. And then it was and I love this word, a paradigm shift that resulted in eye hospitals and health ministries seeking technical expertise rather than financial support to eliminate avoidable blindness on a sustainable basis. So meaning that we were good at linking everything together and bringing the services to the people, and then ensuring that it was community led, so that people would, access services, because there's a history of just not trust in really any country that you go in, and you're bringing a system of change there, and trying to get the people to even go in for basic eye care, or to realize that that's important and this is why we need to do it. Another big thing that they do sustainably in other countries for Operation Eyesight is they provide clean water to communities as well too, in the way of say a borehole or a drinking well, and the importance of cleanliness and regular washing and pieces like that. So that's how sustainability looks over there. Here in Canada, I think we want to kind of emulate what that looks like, and work with my role specifically as a community engagement specialist for Indigenous programs will be to do that, but with if you know kind of the healthcare system here in Canada, you start to get the landscape of I guess the Indigenous healthcare system, which communities have actually hospitals in community, or if it's a health center, or if it's a nursing station, or if it's even just an ATCO trailer is reality of some places as well too, depending how remote you get. So I want to be able to provide that basic eye care to, well, not me, but provide the access to that basic eye care in these communities through the same way, and make eye care something that's becomes regular, important to folks, gets the same I guess notoriety as how do you say that, dental? Yeah, like the dental bill and pieces like that, because eye care right now falls out of any general health piece right now, and it's lagging behind everywhere. But if any four of us here thought about the importance of our eyes, and if you could imagine not being able to see, or if we popped our glasses off and tried to do anything, right? No. We know what that is. So that's kind of, I guess, what sustainability looks like right now, and what we want to do in Canada here as we build our Canada program, especially with Indigenous communities. So 100% community-led programming is what makes, I think, things sustainable.
Yeah, so just a little context for our listeners here. I connected with Sidney when I was on, it's called the Global Connect program. So Operation Eyesight was actually the first organization we saw in the entire trip, first one in Calgary specifically too. And so just like the partners that Sidney was talking about, he was just mentioning the presentation that we had. And one thing I noticed when I was actually on the Global Connect program is that a lot of I guess organizations follow that community-based approach that you were talking about, and that really stuck out to me because I haven't really heard that kind of wording, community approach or community-led, volunteer community-led, until I actually went on the Global Connect program. And I think the reason why these developmental organizations that work in like other countries beyond Canada, that they work for so long, is that they don't use policies that work here or are made here, work here, they flourish here, and then bring that and put that and implement it in communities there. Because you don't know how the community operates there. You don't know here that like sometimes we don't listen to elders. We just listen to people in power instead. But there, it's not power, it's elders, respect. And so you kind of have to like shift the way your policies are made. And I think that approach really kind of stood out to me, that like if you are going to work with a community, it cannot be based on your terms. It has to be based on the community's term. And that's what makes any practice or anything that you do sustainable on its own. So Darcy, I had a question for you. What made you join Operation Eyesight?
Yeah, so it started off more looking at the organization as a whole and everything that they've done up to this 60-year point. Even just how it was started really just attracted, it shows that it's all in good faith, really. And yeah, all the work that they've done so far has been really impressive, and how they've been able to actually sustain it within the communities. And then for me, being Indigenous and, wanting to go back more to my roots and helping that side of things, when I learned about the more Canadian program that's involving, it really attracted me to that. So, yeah.
That's nice. Okay, so I know, Sidney, you mentioned that like eye health care is something that no one really is on number one on their list when we're talking about health. It's always something else. I feel like even me personally, like it's always, my eyesight is always the last thing that I think about when it should be the first.
Yeah.
Like you'll see me, I can't see far, but I'll sit in the car, I'll drive off, I'm halfway to my destination, and then I realize, wait, I'm blind. Like everything that I'm seeing is like kind of blurry, but I'm just in such an autopilot that I don't realize that I'm not wearing my glasses. So why do you think, in your opinion, eye health is important? We know vision is important, but why is it that you think people don't give it as much, I guess, importance? And why do you think that we should give it importance, even though we know vision is one of the most important senses that we do have? So in your opinion, why do you think people kind of forget about eye health?
Well, I think, historically, eye health has been deprioritized by national governments, key international agencies. There's been a lot of lack of education when it comes to, I think, the importance of eye health. I can't ever remember seeing anything as important as eye health as, say, even around what it was to eat your vegetables, or how often you should be brushing your teeth and pieces like that. There was never an education piece around get your eye checked on a regular basis that I can remember, even going through school. I don't know about you guys. You guys come from a lot younger generation than me, but when you guys went through school, I don't know if you remember if there was ever anything like that. But when I went through school, there used to be a time when they'd even send dental people in, and we used to do that little swish in our mouth with the colored stuff. I don't know if you guys did it when you were young, but it was just an oral health thing too that they used to do in the schools, but there was never a thing for eyes. So I think that has always been a lack of bringing it to the forefront, and I think people just really take eyesight for granted for whatever reason, when you've had it your whole life. I could never speak to somebody who is blind or has lost eyesight or throughout their life, right? All I know is I woke up one day and my vision was blurry, and I used to have, like, I remember going to do eye tests and having like 20/20 vision or whatever that was, the best vision you could have, and they just tell me that you have a sensitivity to light, maybe wear some sunglasses, but I guess I'm a sun seeker, so I didn't take their their advice, and I woke up one day and I swear that it was like I had the bottom of a dirty glass or something over my eyes, or all of a sudden everything was blurry. I couldn't read little lines anymore, and I tried to avoid it for as long as I could. And like you said, I learned how to go on autopilot and just see the things around me. And then I discovered readers, and then I could see again. And then I figured I should get some actual glasses. And that's when I really went into of what it looks like to navigate benefits here, right, in Canada. And I think that's another piece to answer your question of why it's important, especially for Indigenous folks, and being able to see, and then connection to, I want to say, the land, and being outside, and also, I guess, being able to read the things we need able to read today, to write stories in our language now that so much of this knowledge is coming to the forefront. So those are a couple areas why I think eye health is important. Why I think it's been ignored again is just the lack of education and really bringing it to the forefront. There's a bill right now, it was a private member's bill, but I know we were involved at Operation Eyesight. I'm just trying to think of the name of it right now, Bill C-24. So we're still trying to push that, and maybe if one of the larger parties brings it to the table, it'll get that same notoriety that we've seen of that dental bill that came through, and it became more of a national priority for folks to get that access across Canada here, and built into eye health care, which comes with benefits. But that's a whole conversation too that we could get into, of what do those benefits look like, right? Because you said, like, I agree with what you said about every country looks a little bit different, and that looks a little different because the eye healthcare system in its whole, or even the healthcare system, looks different. But when you get down to the local people, they know the solutions to the problems that exist. So same thing with I think I'm being here, and why to answer your question, why these things are important in areas that we're working with at Operation Eyesight to mitigate these areas and issues and problems here in Canada.
I feel like I can relate to what story you were saying, is that in grade 11, same thing, vision 20/20, and then I noticed I can't read the board, and it's like, why can't I read the board? So I just started blaming it on the glare that was coming in from the window. It's hitting like the board, maybe that's why I can't see. Obviously I did not move my spot because I was with my friends. I'm gonna sit there. So in physics class, I could not see half of what the teacher was writing on the board, but I ignored it because whatever, it was the sunlight. And then I realized one day when it was raining and then it was dark, I could not see the board at all. And I don't know, in a span of maybe 2 years, not even, my eyesight went from like 20/20 to like, right now it's negative 2.25. Like, it's not the worst, but it just kind of shocked me that in 2 years it went down that bad. No one told me, like, wear your glasses consistently. Why is it important to wear glasses? And you mentioned, like, during schools, did you guys ever have eye checkups or dental checkups? I never had that. But I do remember growing up and only going to the dental office, like the dentist. That's it. Yeah. I think the first time I went to an optometrist was in grade 11. And that was because I had to. Yeah. And if I didn't have to, I don't think I would have even went to an optometrist, because it's like, oh, I can see, that's fine.
Well, the cost is so out of pocket, right? Like, I mean, $120 and more per eye exam is just out of the question for some families. If my kid can see, they can see, right? Is the premise, or I think the piece that the parent might be happy about. You would hope, but yeah, that eyesight is or being able to see the board, I think is important, because when I went out to Satina, the health fair there, and they had groups of students coming through, because the Many Gray Horses High School was right next door to the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex. So I had a board up there just posing a simple question on, what would an Indigenous eye health care program look like to you? And one of the was sticky notes, and I'd get in conversation with people who would approach our booth, and I'd write something down on the sticky note, and I'd tell them to put it up there. And one of the groups of students that came through there, one of the pieces that one of the kids wrote down was simply being able to see the whiteboard or blackboard or whatever it's called now, like the smart board or what that they use in classrooms. And then a lot of other stuff about being treated fairly when you seek out services. And then, like I said, when it comes to that benefit piece, that's a whole other thing that came up as well too, of say you go somewhere, okay, you go to your optometrist and you walk in there and all you have is First Nations healthcare. A lot of the times, right, you're either turned away or the service becomes a lot different as well too. So there's that whole systemic barrier as well too that just plays I think a hard part for a segment of the Canadian population seeking eye health care that is just not there, which is the sad truth of a lot of things in Canada when it comes to healthcare in general, which is kind of the premise behind this whole podcast here. So, I mean, another area of sad truth, but you got folks, I think, like Darcy and I that have a commitment to eliminate avoidable vision loss and provide equitable access to deserving groups of individuals as well too, right?
Mm-hmm. As you said, Sidney, we take eye health for granted when we talk about health or wellness, but it's also been noted that access to eye care is more than just a one-time checkup. So can you elaborate on the ongoing support and care that's needed for sustainable eye health in these communities?
Yeah, you betcha. Did you want to speak to that, Darce? I think it goes right in line with kind of this.
We kind of are lined up with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is including good health and well-being and gender equality as a reality. So as we deliver results and impacts through the programs and partnerships with like-minded non-eye health organizations and corporations, we will also contribute to other goals as well for reducing inequalities.
Yeah. I know you were talking about how Operation Eyesight wants to do work here in Canada, in Calgary, especially for and in Indigenous communities. Where did that kind of idea come from? Because I know Operation Eyesight does a lot of work overseas. So why did you want to bring it here in Calgary? Why did you think that maybe Calgary, there was a need for it? Just speak about kind of how, where did this kind of start from?
So with some folks that were at Operation Eyesight and have since moved on to other opportunities, they knew there was a case here. They were strong allies of underserving communities, underserved communities, not just Indigenous communities only, but maybe immigrants as well too. Other minorities, BIPOC communities that just face those barriers that we know exist here in Canada. So they knew that a case existed for work to be done here as well too. As the way things are done here, a literature review and an evidence-based model and business case was kind of presented at an upper level here from what I understand, and then there was traction built and buy-in, and then the person who was leading the team kind of got the organizational go-ahead to start building a Canada team. So they employed a research special, or at first a kind of a community research specialist, and she did a literature review. And I think one of the for the amount of studies that go on in this country, and I know for a fact with Indigenous communities because I've been studied my whole life. It's funny that there's a lack of Indigenous data when it comes to this particular area, but the one thing that does come to the forefront, again, like I said, is sadly there's a high population of Indigenous people that don't seek eye health, that don't get eye health like anywhere else. So through that, they figured that that's why they would want to do things here in Canada, and then the home office here of Operation Eyesight is in Calgary. So they thought that, of course, you want to get some stuff going in your base of operation would probably be best, and get a reputation in your home turf. All right, so they endeavored on a pilot project here with a mobile eye clinic, Evolution Eyes, who is still one of our I think our biggest partners right now, with providing eye health care to like inner city eye health centers, like the Alex, like somewhere, places like that. Not per se right into the hospitals, yet. Hopefully, that's maybe down the line, but that's kind of where that pilot project started, and how we started working here in Calgary, and how we just knew that those pieces are evident here of what that looks like. Because once we started working with those organizations, we found what literal literature that was there to be correlating with what we were seeing in these programs when we would do an evaluation piece.
Are you just gonna start the project first in Calgary, or do you want to kind of bring the project across Canada?
Eventually, I think that would be like, if you looked at like a 5-year plan, and if we looked at kind of where we want to be and how do we get there, and then we look, I guess, 5 years ahead. I would want to be operating in a lot of other First Nations or with First Nations, definitely. But in Calgary here, in Treaty 7 in this territory, this is definitely where we want to get started and have as much opportunity to serve, the million plus population that exists here, right? Like Calgary, a lot of folks seem to like to come here, and to that, Alberta in general, right? For whatever reason. So we want to kind of make sure that we're there to help with those needs as well too. No, with like the prices going up and inflation, I think, just in general, it's very hard to even afford groceries. And so then, like we were talking about, if you can't afford groceries, you can't afford rent. If you can decently see, you're like, whatever, I'll just go with it, and so you don't go and get your checkup or anything done. And so do you think that, I think this program, like you were saying, in the next 5 years, you kind of want to bring it across. I think it'd be really cool to see it in places that are very high in rent and cost of living. Like you said, a lot of people coming to Alberta because of those reasons. To see a mobile eye healthcare kind of vehicle coming in Vancouver, for example, Toronto, for example, because there's so many underserved communities there too, and even people who are barely making that line are homeless. I was online just looking at it, and just looking at how bad things are in Toronto right now. It's kind of scary to see that it's actually just happening a couple provinces away. That's another segment of the population that this program is designed to serve as well too, is homeless populations, and providing eye health care to them as well too, or access to it. But again, it comes down to, like you said, cost and pieces like that, because even this program, if there's benefits to be used, like even provincial benefits, like there would be for anything else for eye health care, I guess, or for healthcare in general, with eye health falling out of that. They are accessed, right? Like it's you know what I mean, and we want to try and do our best to catch those folks that for whatever reason just don't have any coverage. But if there is pieces there, like we have figured out how to navigate the system, you know what I mean, to ensure that the person who needs the service that day, should they have used that benefit up over that 2 years really of what it looks like if you are receiving provincial benefits, because really I think you need at least I think it's once a year, but they provide it every 2 years, right? If you're between the ages of, I think it's 18 to 69. Other than that, you kind of have some coverage, but there's a segment there that falls in there. We figured out how to ensure that, again, if that person that day there should need that service, that there's a piece that can come with them, that our optometrists that we work with there, who again, right, these are the unicorns in the field that we're working with, right, is the best way to describe them, because what you would charge in a private practice is not equivalent to what you would get from a benefit if you were on Alberta Works, AISH being here, right? There's a disparity there of, probably significant. I don't know the exact numbers yet myself, but I think it's between a difference of being paid $60 or upwards of $100 more for an exam of, say, you doing the work, right? Being that optometrist. So with even that, right, it just, it's not there for that person, but there's pieces there. But if somebody falls out of that and all of a sudden there's no benefits there, we want to ensure that whoever's there, our unicorn, if you will, is again not there, is getting their fair share of the work put in, because nobody, I think, should have to do, I don't know, should work for free if they've put in all this or anything like that, but they're there to help. So we try and ensure that financial piece is always covered, no matter what, for whoever's kind of trying to access, I think, the clinic that day, of which is a huge barrier in like you said, for just cost of living right now and across the board.
And I really want to get into the cost of barriers. We will in a little bit into the podcast, but I know you mentioned when you come to an appointment, for example, how the physician or optometrist or whoever treats you. I know I volunteer for this organization, and one of my clients, she's on AISH, and even she was telling me that when she goes to her doctor's appointments, they're just, because they know she's on AISH, they're like, well, not going to be getting that much money, so we don't really have to give you, the top tier kind of service. I will be lazy. I'll show up a couple minutes after that I'm supposed to. And she's like, anytime that I go to the appointment, I feel rushed. She's like, I get anxiety sitting in the appointment, because she's like, I'm not able to actually talk about what I want to do, because I feel like the doctor is rushing me. And I'd love to kind of get more into it as the recording goes on, but I think the barriers, just cost barrier is the first one, but I think even the way you get treated, that's the thing that makes you not want to come the second time. Because if you're getting treated bad, why would you get treated bad? Why would you choose to get treated bad again? At that point, you're like, whatever, I don't want to go.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard that experience a lot from, I guess, just my time of not only working in, I guess, my short time of working with Operation Eyesight, but my time in kind of working in this field in general, and of course personal experience too of what it's like to go in with just First Nations healthcare coverage, or if you have Blue Cross or Sun Life or something else that can be accessed by who you're going to serve that, or who you're going to get served by, and just the difference of how you're treated, and what that exam looks like, or what that time looks like being in that office. It's weird how it becomes, you become a second tier individual. It's I don't know. It's just so weird, and it's such a true experience of, I think, folks who are, if they're on some kind of provincial benefit, if they are, right, you got to remember that you got to go through a whole process even just to get AISH or that adult health benefit. If you don't have those, and if you're Indigenous, maybe you have status, and then that becomes its own, okay, well, now you're not only second tier, you're third tier, if you will, right? You're kicked down another notch, and then the struggle even with that to get that service or that payment. Like, again, like that's been my experience at working with places that are like, oh, we don't work with them, that's what they say, talking about First Nations health coverage, because they're so hard to deal with, and that's what you hear right away. Oh, sorry, we don't deal with them. And then you ask why. Well, they're so and then I've had the time experience too. I've said, okay, well, I'm going to check this out. So I did all the phone call and waited, and it took me, I think, 2 months to get the approval I needed.
It's kind of like from both sides, like from, let's say, the office itself, like the receptionist, because I was a receptionist for a bit, and I remember dealing with insurance companies can be a lot when you have a lot of patients coming in with different companies too. And I see from both sides, it's like the office itself, they're so busy, they're so overworked, overstaffed, etc., that they don't want to do the work because they're quote unquote, whatever their reasons may be. They might be lazy, or they don't have the manpower to do it, or the woman power to do it. And so that becomes an issue. And then on the other end, these insurance companies have so much that's going on in their own company that they don't have the time to focus on their clients in a way. Yeah. And so it's like, if both places are busy, it's like you will never be able to work together in a way too. Like you mentioned, that even when you call like an insurance company, you'll be on the phone for so long just trying to hear one answer, and then when they do talk to you, they give you an answer that's doesn't really answer your question. Yeah. And so you get lost again. And I know, like, even in my appointments when I go to the optometrist and then they do that little 1 or 2 thing, I feel like if the physician or optometrist is kind of, let's say, being rude to you, sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference between 1 or 2. And so I feel like a lot of people, I know me personally, I do this just because I feel rushed, and I feel like they're not going to give me the same, like, I feel like I'm annoying them by being like, can you go back again and show me, because I can't tell. Like, imagine if the optometrist itself is being a little pushy and a little like fast, the other person feels like I shouldn't even comment because they're gonna get annoyed, so I'll just go with 1 even though 2 was better. Or I won't ask for it because whatever, it's past it now. And I feel like if I experience that, I'm not the only person who experiences that. I feel like a lot of people experience that, and that sucks, because you're going to your appointment and you're happy you finally got there, but you get the wrong prescription. Or you don't actually get the type of care that you need because you feel so rushed. Yeah,
that's, I think, another, I guess, ideal piece about, or a piece that we would want to add to this program as well too, is culturally informed care. You know what I mean? Some type of regulated training that you see coming in a lot of industries right now about First Nations people, and about just the struggle is real, right? How it's not fair across the board, so people could even have a chance to explore their own biases on why they feel they need to treat other individuals like that when they're just there seeking the service like anybody else would be, but they just have to pay $60 less or whatever that looks like. It doesn't mean that they need the less type of treatment, type of thing. So yeah, like I am 100% I agree with you. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Darcy, on anything like that, or what your experience has been for eye care for yourself.
I didn't get a lot of eye exams when I was younger, but to be fair, I do have great vision, so I'm blessed with that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like.
Wait, and you're just how old still right now though?
I think there's definitely the relationship. There's a lot of distrust and a lot of just unsure about going to a doctor and trusting them and making sure that they are actually there to help you and want to help you. I know when we were at one of the health fairs, a really sweet lady was telling us how she needs to get cataract surgery, but she does not trust the surgeon, and so she does not want to go. And although her family wants her to go so, she can see again and live life to the fullest, but she was scared to go. And so it's affecting her way of life now. And there's another barrier of actually just like going to get it done. Like it's a far away for a lot of people. There's not local. So that's also just like another barrier or another added stress, because it's like, do I trust them? Do I want to travel all the way over there? So there's a lot of different things, a lot of different factors that can come into mind for people that need the eye care. But yeah, I think that's a lot of the barriers there.
Yeah, I know you mentioned like on reserves, like they won't have like maybe they won't have like an optometrist, like an eye clinic, or like a dental clinic. And even if they do, like I know we were talking to another potential speaker, and she's from a town near Brooks. I kind of forgot, but it's in rural Alberta, and she was saying that she went through a lot of like she has her own she has to go see the doctor often, and she says that when we go, there'll be one doctor on call. And with the one doctor on call, it's not like you're in Calgary, the doctor will show up in 10 minutes. It's more so the doctor will show up in an hour, 2 hours. Maybe they'll be busy and they'll show up even after that. And so it's so hard to, even if it's an emergency, then you have to drive all the way into the city to get to the service. Sometimes the service doesn't come to you, and when the service does come to you, they take their sweet time. And so I do like that kind of barrier that you did mention, that we kind of forget that, like, because we live in Calgary, I'm so used to like everything's like 10 minutes away from me, like I don't have to worry. But thinking about people who live not in Calgary, who live a little bit farther, and to come to Calgary is more like a 5-hour drive, I think that perspective is something that I haven't really taken into account because I didn't have to. So I do like the point that you did bring up though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about so many barriers: trust, cost barriers, location wise. So I was wondering, for Operation Eyesight, how can it incorporate the Indigenous experience?
I think again with that is now we're on a journey ourselves. I think, and I say ourselves as an organization, because since I've joined there, it's I think coming on 8 months now. I'm getting close to a year. We want to learn, right? We're in a 100% learning phase right now about what that Indigenous journey looks like and how we can best address that. We've undergone some in-house training in pieces like that, so that when we look to connect with communities or work with communities here in Treaty 7 territory, even in this urban setting, there's an understanding within our home office of what that looks like in those inequities, those unfairness, those inequalities that we've kind of talked about here this morning, or that you kind of just mentioned there as well too, how those pieces do affect individuals right here that we've been taught to, like I say, look by if we do take our glasses off and we do look like a blurry, right? We were taught to ignore them and not see them and pretend they don't exist here, or somebody is helping them and we don't have to worry about them when maybe we do have a job to do. So there's a lot of internal learning going on right now amongst ourselves about what that would look like, and then we also will take it upon ourselves as an organization to ensure that we have a council or a committee, an Indigenous advisory committee, ensuring that we're thinking of things that we've probably not even thought about yet, right? And when it looks like to improving this mobile eye health clinic as well too, right? And things that we are doing. Or if when we do grow over the years and say we do start working with, say, Indigenous communities and Indigenous eye health or Indigenous healthcare centers, that, again, we've done the work, per se, if you will, right? Internally, so that we're not coming in with I don't know, I guess that white savior or whatever, that savior mentality that that you come into a lot of communities thinking that we know how to do this, and then also not like you said, one and done.
Yeah.
Here's your eye, here's your checkup, here's your glasses, see you in a year, kind of thing. That there's a built-in component piece to keep going in the communities as well too, that is ownership by them of what it looks like to keep that education going about eye health, or there's pieces around the community that are in their language, in things that mean something to them, that would represent the importance of eyesight as to what we would think of being or what it would make it important to us by going to your local optometrist office. So I think representation of what that, and inclusion, and then inside of this program, I really hope there's a desire to bring aboard more Indigenous people as well too, to really build out this program to do this work beyond Darcy and myself as well too, even though we're kind of the go-getters right now of what's happening with this stuff. So I think that is how a way that we want to do that and guide on anything we want to do to ensure that Indigenous worldview or even lived experience is incorporated into anything that we're going to do.
Yeah. It's good to hear having an Indigenous community involved in this Operation Eyesight is a great way to include and
the community base.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also mentioned white savior and stuff. So how are you planning to decolonize the work you're planning to do?
So a little bit of that now again is education, right? Mm-hmm. And then really again educating the people on our team who are going to be helping us tell these stories and pieces like that. So again, for ourselves, we've undergone some training with an organization called BIPOC and Indigenous, which is a Indigenous relations firm, and we went 2 days of in-depth training on basic, if you will, First Nations 101 on the first day, right, for our staff and pieces like that. You can equivalent to maybe the U of A course, Indigenous Canada. Yeah, kind of like that. We touched on areas that should be, every Canadian should know about, no matter what you do for work. And then a second day, we actually went into one, it was called, hang on, I'm just trying to find the name of it here. It was called Decolonized Communications, and training, right? And through that one, we looked at, again, what it looked like to tell stories and lose that saviorism, if that's the word, or what, you know what I mean, that context of even like saying, or our work with our Indigenous communities, right? Like ownership and storytelling, right? Like who's really telling this story? Who should we have telling this story? So pieces like that, I think, we're learning to incorporate in what we do front facing to community, because all of our work is donor supported, right? Like we're not government funded, anything like that. We don't have regular pieces like that. This is all, we have a donor relations team that needs to go out and really tell these stories in a heartfelt way, right? And if you look at the Operation Eyesight webpage, you'll see some really heartfelt stories where, you know what I mean, like you watch that and 2 minutes later you're got the lump in your throat or something, right? And you're ready to give. So we want to bring that same, like I said, tell those stories by Indigenous peoples without it seeming like, oh, pandering, or oh, we're again presenting something we don't know what we're talking about. So that's kind of what we're doing to really ensure that Indigenous lens is there. Then of course onboarding people like myself and Darcy who are authentic Indigenous people who, you know, live that and can tell that story.
Did you ever get a chance to kind of facilitate a blanket exercise for your office?
Yeah, I did. I two of them. We that was one of the actually. The training actually went kind of neat for Operation Eyesight, kind of a reverse of what you would normally do. So normally a blanket exercise is something you would do maybe after a classroom style training, which the Pipikwan was very impactful. Elders like involved, like I'd never been in such a great training in that type of setting. They did a great blend of that. But a blanket exercise, like it takes you to a different place, a different journey, right? It's meant to physically put you in what that looked like for Indigenous people, and even really start to like I don't know what would be a word for it, Darcy. You experienced when you like how did you feel going kind of through the blanket exercise, even though you're Indigenous yourself? Like I always find that's a different lens itself, but you were there that day. Maybe you can
even though, you know, I am definitely familiar with the timeline of things, when you're physically put into it and you see things being taken away and see the blankets moving and people moving, it definitely still put things into perspective, and it's very moving and very emotional still. Even though, you know, when you're just reading something in a book or on words, you can take that indefinitely, but when you're like physically visualizing it, it definitely has deeper meaning.
Yeah, I did a blanket exercise last year in January, and like you said, I fully what you said, like I can relate to it when you were like, you read something but it doesn't like the emotions doesn't really register properly, you're just reading it. But when I actually physically stood there on the land, held the cards, and they're like, well, you're holding a red card, you're out. And it's like, well, I just got the card. How am I out? And so just being there physically, it connected all the information that we did learn together. It made me feel like, okay, like I can actually connect with the information now. And when I read it, I felt that emotional connection. Initially, it was more so, you're just reading it to read it. The teacher told you, the prof told you. But now it's like when I was reading it, I understood what was being written, why it was being written, and from what perspective, which was really nice. I think a lot of classes should do blanket exercises. Yeah,
it's powerful, for sure. I've done it in schools with like groups of students. I think it was a grade 9 class, and then with teachers as well too, with professionals, with post-secondary students, with I guess I said working professionals. And it's always been afterwards when you sit down and you hear people share about the impact on what it was. You do hear a lot of I never thought about it this way, or I've never experienced this way, where they are put in a place where it a commonality does, or I guess maybe a humanness comes out, instead of just looking at it as kind of how we're taught to look at the Indigenous experience today as problematic, right? It's a problem for Canada to solve, where really it's a partnership that needs to be revisited.
What approach do you find the most effective in serving communities with similar issues, if that's
in Canada here?
Yeah,
like similar issue, like, okay, I guess a comparison I could make here is I spent a lot of years work, we spoke about it today, in homelessness, and with that presents a lot of same issues that come through with eyecare. It's with people just accessing services, so I think it was bringing the services to the people, kind of like what we're doing now with this mobile eye clinic. Like, for instance, working with the drop-in center really seems to be effective. We were there the other the other day, and then things went well for the time we were there, and the appointments that were scheduled that day with the nature of the folks being served. It's a little harder to nail down. So bringing that to the people was, I think, really effective. And with saying that, it's also, I think, and we're not frontline workers, right? So right, we more kind of coordinate things, but it's that old saying too of meeting people where they're at. So with the folks that we are partnered with, right, there kind of is that education piece there around the folks we're serving, right, are coming to serve a system that has all these invisible barriers, so we have to be recognize that. So there is that cultural education piece as well too of what this looks like for folks wanting to come seek out services who normally don't, or who for whatever reason, racism and biases are treated differently when they do go seek services, whether they be, I guess, from the experience of being Indigenous or homeless, or even kind of both. So I think that's kind of been an approach that I've used in this field as being a professional for as long as I have. And then, of course, just always being the best ally I can for folks, but not, again, just because I'm Indigenous doesn't mean I can't come in with my own level of saviorism too, right? Thinking that I know what's best when I probably don't, right? Because it's not me, it's somebody else's journey. So I got to support that as best I can. So I think a recognition of that as well too, and a level of humility has always been good. And then when you get to equivalently in talking about Indigenous way of life, Indigenous knowing and being, again, I've always found bringing that it has been very successful as well too. And that may be as simple as, you show up with a braid of sweetgrass or a bundle of sage or something like that, right? When you're going to serve individuals, or you add that level of cultural safety, right? I think that we kind of touched upon for when Darcy said maybe somebody doesn't feel safe going somewhere because there's not that cultural safety piece there as well too, kind of thing,
I like the way you said and recognize that, like, I might be Indigenous, but like I have a savior kind of complex in me too, and I feel like that's something that not a lot of people kind of say that about themselves. So I do appreciate you saying that. And I know you do a lot of work in kind of reconnection and connection and cultural practices. Why is that so important to you?
Well, I think for me, that's kind of what brought me back to who I am, right? I was raised as kind of the only ever little brown kid with all of the white kids when I grew up, right? With the mining community that I grew up in, right? So I remember myself being small and being scared of the other Indigenous kids that were from the town that I was in. So as I got older, I realized, you know what, I don't fit in with this group of non-Indigenous fair-skinned, northern Manitoba kids that I grew up with, right? That I maybe fit in better over here. But with that also came what it is to be lost as well too, right? Because there's no connection there. Nobody really knew what it was to be what I am today, right? And like you said, I was induced as an Indigenous man. Well, I can explain what that is through culture now. So it was a journey back to there, a whole lifelong journey for myself, right? From age 26 to 44, lifelong if you can, but I can actually pinpoint the years where, I went back to ceremony and really started diving into that piece to give myself the strength to walk in all the rest of this world, but be able to bring that all the time and not get lost in the Western views or the Western way of work, the way of things of how or of how and where I work in the professional field. So that's always been at the heart of my work, because it's been, I guess, the heart of my journey as well too, to get back to who I am and reclaiming my heritage and ancestry as well too. So that's why I think that the little bit of why that's so important to me, of always ensuring that I talk about this stuff no matter what field I work in, or whatever sector I work in this field, eye health specific, homelessness, or any other justice, right? You know what I mean? I do a lot of work up in justice as well too, so it's the same thing. All I bring there is culture. Yeah. That's it. You know what I mean? And reconnect the individuals, because if there's one person there that it helps, great. Right? And if it helps somebody feel safe to come access a service, great. Hopefully they'll continue on. And then hopefully through education, in their language, even, if you will, like in their culture, that they'll continue on to seek out that overall good health above all else, right? And you get that happiness, help, and understanding to follow.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And for you, Darcy, how was that kind of journey of reconnection? How was that for you?
So since I'm someone with more lighter skin, light eyes, a lot of people looking at me would never guess that I am a Métis. And part of that is also I never really felt Indigenous or Métis because of how I look. And so it's always kind of a lost journey of where I fit into that as well. But I think as I'm getting older, trying to connect more with my heritage and with the cultural roots there. And it's kind of just a journey, and realizing that there's a lot of people like me that also don't physically look it, but that doesn't change anything else about my background and my relatives and ancestors and what they fought through and for me to be here. So it's still a continuous journey, but always learning and seeing what I can do with it.
That's really nice. I know you said that like ceremony was like a way for you to reconnect. What does ceremony mean to you? For you both. Anyone can go first.
I think for me, it's going back to the land. Okay. I mean, getting back on the land, land-based teachings, and getting outside of these spaces, right? Like even taking this for a walk on, I don't know, like a portable set and doing an interview like this, you know, especially when the weather is nice like this outside, where you can hear the wind and the rustle and the birds and sit on the grass kind of thing. So getting back there, and then once you get to the land, right, that's where I think you get into teachings about ceremony and actually participating in actual ceremony, where it becomes, as they call it now, like experiential learning, right, where you are actually learning by doing, and how it is at your homes, right? You might have a very cultural oriented home, right? So you might know exactly what I'm talking about. When you walk in the door, you might go into, maybe you don't only speak English, maybe at home you speak your mother tongues, right? And the whole flavor changes when you walk in the door. So it's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing when you jump into, for me to get back to what that looks like and then go back into ceremony, is I don't have to speak English, right? I can start to sing and pray, and I know that I'm saying things that aren't in this tongue that it's great, you know, we've all become universal translators if we know this language, but if you know your own language, and if you know how to pray in your own language, you know that your ancestors hear you that much more, even though I know I could pray in English and it would be just as effective. But there's just a level of ceremony there when you get back to what that looks like, land, language, medicines, smells, pieces like that. So I think that's kind of what ceremony is to me, and then also including it into your everyday life. And then you walk the walk, right? Not just talk the talk of when you're in ceremony. I mean, we're just human beings. We want to laugh and have fun, of course, but you know what I mean? When you gotta carry that spiritual ethicalness with you, I guess, when you do get into a certain aspect of ceremony, or maybe it's a certain time of year, right? Like maybe you're a faster and it's time for you to go out fasting. So the way that I was taught about fasting, right, there's going to be this whole time frame where you're going to take yourself out of basically the mainstream of society for a period of time while you get ready to go out and do this very sacred thing, and to build yourself resilience up to be able to go do this very sacred thing, right? Because it's not simple. So those are kind of all what it means to me to go back to ceremony and still get out every day and sadly have to make money to live.
Nice. And I have a kind of like this, because our podcast is kind of about health and wellness and Canadian healthcare system. What does kind of wellness, maybe mental health, what does that mean to you? Because we had a speaker come on and she made a really good point of saying that I don't like using the term mental health or just health. It's wellness. So that really resonated with me, and anytime that I go out, I like to use the word wellness now, just because it's a well-rounded word.
Holistic.
It's holistic. It encompasses so much more than when I just say mental health. It's very categorized in that sense.
You can get stigmatized too.
And yeah, just those two words put together itself are very, so...
Even for us, I think it's called wellness days now instead of mental health days, and like in the field and all that, and policy and all of that too. Question again being
so what does kind of wellness mean to you? What does that look like
for this specific, like for this,
just for you in general?
Well, for me, I think I would speak to wellness in waking up every day and being thankful, as hard as that is, right? The mornings when you wake up, where you're just not that thankful. So I think it's the simple things in that, in family as well too. I think is huge in that area. Wellness as well too, and making sure that what it looks like to take care of your family, or what your place is in with your family, and that could be either immediate family, right, or maybe you're an adopted family, right? So again, that for me could be teoshpe, where you're adopted, and then you're a sibling by choice, which could maybe mean more than a blood sibling, right? So I think those pieces for wellness in general are things that you need to have included in your life, and then our general healthy stuff that comes through, what we know about the Canadian healthcare system, of course, too. You should be going to get regular checkups, hopefully get a doctor if you can get one, even though there's a shortage for all of this stuff. So there's definitely that piece of wellness too when we speak about it, and regular eye health checkups. I can't stress that enough. and taking care of that, but there's that spiritual wellness and then pieces around there too that works hand in hand, that you kind of need to incorporate, I think, and chase down and be thankful for. So in a nutshell, I guess, or in a circular aspect, that's kind of wellness, holistic piece as well too, going beyond just what it looks like to eat your vitamins or proper vegetables, or don't eat too much red meat, or whatever the latest advice is, right? For I guess also depending on a lot of that too is, I want to say there's a piece there about diet as well too, and what is traditional diet and all of that. Right, like we can get into diabetes around wellness and all of that as well too, but I think for wellness, for me, that's kind of what it looks like.
Well, I also have a question. If some listeners would wants to join Operation Eyesight, is there a process to getting involved with Operation Eyesight?
Like as a volunteer?
Yeah, or anything.
Well, I guess if there's a position posting, somebody can always apply to work there, right? But I think as for volunteers, I'm not sure if we have a huge volunteer component right now. I think the best way is I think through giving right now with Operation Eyesight, and then being able to, whatever that looks like for a donation, is the best way to get involved. And then through all the great work that they do, they kind of, funnel that money to where it needs to go as well too, based on program needs and things like that. So I think that's probably the best way to get involved right now with Operation Eyesight. Yeah.
Okay. I know, Darcy, we skipped over you, but what does wellness mean to you?
Yeah, it's kind of, I think, a combination of things that Sidney mentioned. So it's physical, mental, spiritual, and how all of those kind of align together to make you really, I think, have good wellness or in good health. Because I feel like if you're lacking in one area, it definitely affects the other. So having the good combination and figuring out what's right for you, and that works a lot with reflection and trial and error sometimes. But yeah, having a harmonious in sync of all of them.
Being in balance.
Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up our episode for today. So if you could leave the listeners with one point or learning or highlight, what would it be? It's a big question.
Again, I would say, just to keep on what we want to say here is the importance of taking care of your eyes and getting some regular access to what that looks like for anybody here, right? Because again, whoever's listening, you might be going through some of the same stuff as well too, right? Of what it looks like to serve or be served or pieces like that. But I think it would be just know the importance of eye health, get some education around that, and ensure that you get your checkup for your eyes.
Yeah, as well as that, I think it's just also leading with kindness and compassion when you are communicating with anyone, no matter what side. If you're a service provider or someone who's needing service, just leading with that can open up more doors probably than you would ever realize, and building trust and relationships through that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's something that we kind of have to... It's kind of sad that we kind of have to remember to be kind.
Right.
That's just something that we should all just do as humans. But I feel like we really forget that. I don't know why it's really hard to be kind in this day and age, but I think that's a really good way to end it. Just be kind. And yeah, like, no matter if you're seeking a service or if you're a service provider, like, you have to maintain that same type of, like, we're both equals at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you're providing the service or if I'm seeking it. Like, we're still here for the same thing in a way. So yeah, thank you guys so much, Sidney and Darcy, for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedule and just sharing your thoughts, letting us know more about what Operation Eyesight does here in Calgary and also internationally. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
We want to thank CJSW, the Indigenous Global and Local Health Office, Grandmother's Lodge at the Faculty of Social Work, the UCreate team, and our editor, Atea, for helping us with this podcast.
Lastly, thank you to everyone who tuned in. To listen to our full episode, tune into Apple Music, Spotify, or cjsw.com with special guests and your two favorite hosts,
Arushi
and Harveen. So keep a lookout for the next episodes, and until then, remember to get your eyes checked and to be kind. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.